for today. She is a Secretary General of Millennials PH, a national youth-led and advocacy-driven organization providing a platform for the Filipino youth's voices to be heard concerning different social and political issues. She is also a community development student of University of the Philippines, Diliman, and she is none other than Miss J. A. Lau.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning po.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and every year the goal is to fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illness and their families. Ngayong umaga, napalad tayo na kasama natin, walang iba kundi si Ma'am Samira Gutoc and Dr. Gia Sison. Para ipakilala sila,
Thank you.
Ma'am Samira is a journalist, women's rights and peace advocate, awarded by the UN Development Program and Peace Award 2018 as the community organizer in Marawi. He's also the recipient of 10 Outstanding Young Men of Cultural and Youth Development by JCI Philippines, the Outstanding Women in the Nation's Service and Glory Award by the UP College of Mass Communication. Para bigyan tayo ng pag-welcome, um, hayaan natin na magsalita ngayon si Ma'am Samira Gutoc. Hello po.
Hi, good morning, Jay, and thank you po to the team that organized and to Ma'am G and our panelists. Very important itong topic because hindi po siya nakikita yung mental health unlike physical health. So very important po to give time to understand mental being, mental well-being, mental awareness, mental health. So saludo po ako sa mga mental health practitioners. I am one with all the workers din na mental health workers dahil hindi po kinikilala nga pa na frontliners sila dahil siguro bagong-bago rin ang mental health law. So I'd like to acknowledge them. I'd like to salute also not just the physical frontliners, doctors, the incubator frontliners, people who are working with the ventilators sa ating mga direct sa ICU, but also people who are involved in debriefing, who understand the psychiatry and mental being ng ating sektor, ng mga patients, families, and mismo frontliners. We are giving time to understand and invest sa plight ng mental well-being workers because they also need to be invested in this COVID crisis. Napaka once in a century nito at very important for us as young people and you as millennials na tanggapin natin no itong ating sitwasyon of shall we say sa akin po ay napakalaking peace work pa rin ito dahil sa napakalaking stigma nga sa issue ng mental health. I'd like to start with that point. One, it is a stigma. Walang mental health institution sa napakaraming areas. There's no mental health workers budget that is recognized by many LGUs. Kinakahiya pag may sinasabi natin, ay mami, papa, meron akong mental health, pwede bang punta ako sa isang psychiatrist or so usually nga ang tawag natin pa sa school guidance counseling ang pupuntahan natin. Hindi pala natin alam yun ang ating mental health counselor, ang guidance counselor dahil sa problema sa boyfriend o kaya problema sa relasyon, sa parent o sa studies natin pag bumabagsak tayo. So one is kilalanin natin na may stigma. Meron po tayong hindi pagkilala, meron tayong pag-insulto, pagkondena. At lalo pa ngayon sa my social media world, it's so embarrassing to talk about mental health or even overly talking about our problems online. Pwedeng issue na rin yon kasi nga you cannot download your own too much personal problems online. And what is the benchmark? Hanggang kailan ka pwede or hanggang saan ang sabihin mo yung problema mo against certain things. So one is pagtanggap sa stigma. Number two ay ang ating pagkaugnay-ugnay, interdependency of everyone in this situation that, the mental health is connected to our physical well-being and our effectivity as persons, as individuals. The mental health of individuals lends to being, efficient in what you do. Kaya importante iyon. So I'd like to show you yung isang, naglalobat na ba tong aking laptop, is yung framework nga ng peace, we call it the peace petals. Self-awareness lends to an awareness of community. You have to start with self-awareness. Kung hindi mo inaalam yung weakness mo, yung iyong need to take care of your mental health, your physical health, you're not going to be able to process many things. So importante yung self-awareness. And that graph makes us aware that like a flower, everything is interconnected. Yung bawat petal na yan, self, community, cultural, and environment, they all lead to a peace flower. That is our goal, di ba? To find mental peace. So yun po, for starters, I'd like to share that and to acknowledge that there are experts like Dr. Gia, thankfully, who's giving us time. Peace advocate lang po ako. And sabi nga ni Prince, that's one of the stories that we should acknowledge, yung The Little Prince ba yun, that sometimes what is unseen, what is invisible is essential. So very important yung unseen mental health. Sige po, Jay. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Samira. Kagaya nga ng nasabi ni Ma'am na maraming kabataan ang nag-advocate for mental health, and it shows naman na more than 40 people ang nag-sign up for this activity natin ngayon. Given na isang araw lang natin na-post ito, pero sobrang dami ng gustong may matutunan pa, sobrang dami ng gustong may makontribute sa mga gantong usapin. Para sa susunod naman natin na tagapagsalita, kasama rin natin ngayon, sobrang palad natin na on a Monday ay nakasama natin si Dr. Gia Sison. Maliban sa pagiging mental health advocate, isa rin siyang breast cancer survivor. She served as the National Secretary of the Philippine College of Occupational Medicine, a board member of the Philippine Medical Association, Committee on Continuing Medical Education, and currently, she's the head of the Women's Wellness Center at Makati Medical Center. Also, si Dr. Gia Sison ay isa sa mga advisors namin sa Youth for Mental Health. So para magbahagi sa atin ng mga insights, lessons, and discussions on mental health, especially ngayong time ng quarantine, kwentuhan lang naman to. I-welcome natin online walang iba kundi si Dr. Gia Sison. Hello po, Doc.
Hi guys. Hello everyone. Good morning, Ma'am Sam. Miss na kita from Dumaguete. So everyone can hear?
Doc Gio, wala po kayong audio
Ay,
po.
walang audio. Wait lang.
Medyo mahina po.
Yeah.
Hi, Ding.
Okay na yung audio?
Ayan,
Okay,
na po.
ma'am.
Okay na po.
Yeah. So, yung topic natin today will be more about mental wellness in a time of pandemic. Kasi extraordinary times tayo ngayon dahil nga sa COVID-19. And sabi nga ni Ma'am Sam earlier, mental health will eventually be the third wave of everything. Kasi ang second wave are those people na hindi naman COVID-related ang sakit. But the third wave, and I think the lingering effect of this COVID is more of sa mental health natin. No? So next slide. So as of May 4, 8 a.m., ito na po yung situation ng Philippines. No? We currently have 9,223 confirmed cases, 607 of which have died. And those who have recovered still surpasses death. No? So that's 1,217. So next slide. So ito yung these are actually range of emotions na I'm sure nararamdaman nyo ito, lalo na ngayon, during these times. Andyan yung feeling ng uncertainty, hindi natin alam kung saan tutungo lahat ng ito. Meron sa atin mga namatayan, no? Like personally, I have lost an uncle because of COVID who is also a doctor several weeks ago. Mag-a-adjust tayo sa ating new normal. Probably lives can be the same again, but it's not gonna happen soon. So the sooner na matanggap natin to, the better we are able to cope. And then lahat tayo, meron tayong heightened emotions. So andyan yung kapag may anxiety, lalong natitrigger, o kaya may mga kaso ng meron talagang diagnosed depression who have actually messaged not only me, even my colleagues na they really feel extra, parang extra sad, so to speak. And sa medical world, meron talagang barrier sa access of service. Kasi kung makikita nyo, may isang time na may nag-post na lola na she was supposed to undergo a dialysis session pero dahil walang masakyan, winheelchair na lang siya ng asawa niya going to the dialysis center. So ito po ay isang lingering problem that we are encountering in a hospital setup now. Yung mga pasyenteng kailangan ng chemotherapy, yung mga counseling. So sabi nga ni Ma'am Sam, yun, isang challenge yun, and others. Next slide. So pagka-define natin ng mental health, since Mental Health Month, we also need to know what mental health really is. And we have to move from that state of mind na we have to see mental health as a state of wellness. So hinighlight lang dito yung isa sa component ng mental health is we are able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So what we are undergoing now is considered great stress, no? But despite of that, nakakapag-webinar pa tayo, nakakatulong pa tayo sa iba, we are able to volunteer, and that in itself is being able to work productively and fruitfully. Next slide. So ito po yung biopsychosocial model of health. So biological, psychological, at saka may social component. Ang pinakatinamaan ng COVID, yung social component. Kaya po, umiba na rin yung term, physical distancing na rin po, no? Hindi naman social distancing na. So yan po yung tatlong main factors when we speak about mental health. Next slide. So let's all remember, we're not alone. No? Hindi po kayo nag-iisa. We are all affected by this pandemic. And negative feelings might be unpleasant, but it's expected. So here are some tips just in case. Ito po yung deck na ginamit namin sa mga nagre-respond in any way, no? Volunteer, through giving of goods, psychological first aid, basta tips on maintaining wellness, no? So next slide. Okay, there was a study dati na ginawa nila on how to develop resiliency. No? Resiliency is the ability to bounce back, di ba, from a stress in life. They did a study on those with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they found out that maintaining a daily routine can actually help you cope or thrive. So, kailangan, kunyari sa isang araw, meron na kayong set of activities that you will do to lessen your stress of ano bang gagawin ko, etc. Sometimes, mukhang ito na rin yung part of new normal, no? Setting set routines per day. Next slide. Ay nga pala, before I forget, doon sa set of routines, please don't forget to inject self-care activities, no? Tulad ng physical exercise. You might want to do that because it helps a lot, no? Exercise, most especially lahat tayo nasa bahay. And ito, very important to because we all have our gadgets with us. Natural, social media po ang takbuhan. So my main takeaway from this slide is you have to learn and find your balance in terms of regulating exposure to positive and negative news. So pumili ka lang po pumili lang po tayo ng isa o dalawang credible news agencies that we run to kung ano na ba yung updates about COVID. Remember, facts minimize fear. So the more that we are knowledgeable pero factual uh, about COVID, the better we cope, no, and balance your exposure. Next slide. And of course, practice at gratitude. Now, this is not the toxic positivity gratitude that I'm talking about. It's more of every day, ask yourself, what are you thankful for today? And type of, what kind of beauty am I cultivating today? So, isang mindset yan na mas makakatulong sa atin, lalo na sa mga panahon na ngayon. Next slide. So, and of course, maintain your social connection, no? Now's the time to make use of technology in a good way, no? By making that phone call or texting that person that you haven't even spoken to for a long time, just to touch base kung kumusta sila. And then you might want to organize yung mga social activities online. Dito papasok yung mga importansya ng support group. No? You might want to form a support group that will help you na, kunyari every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, mag-Zoom meeting kayo, magchichikahan lang kayo. That will really help a lot in terms of maintaining that social connection. Next slide. And of course, you have to know your triggers. No? Iba-iba kasi tayo ng mga trigger, iba-iba rin tayo ng mga nagsistress sa atin sa buhay. So identify those triggers, and on the other side, know how to address them. And one of the ways that you can address them is to actually ask for practical help. Practical help can come in the form of gusto mo lang may makausap, or even someone who can buy you your medicine, yung mga ganon. Or you might want to volunteer to help out in doing errands, no? Of course, you need your quarantine pass for that. So, yan yung mga examples. So, remember these three factors in being able to address your stressor. Number one, reflect, no? When you say reflect, hindi naman yung sobrang deep reflection, but something like, I'm sure meron na kayong naging mga problems before. You might want to reflect on your existing coping strategy. Baka naman may ginawa kayo dati na nag-work before na pwede mag-work kayo. Number two, examine how you can address barriers to self-care. Try to ask what you need this time, and huwag kayong mahiya na i-verbalize yung inyong kailangan ngayon, because people are not mind readers. So we really need to verbalize and ask what we want. And then of course, replace, no? Sometimes it also pays to replace your negative emotions and replace it to positive practices. Tulad ng ganito. Example, you feel so stressed or anxious, you might want to do deep breathing exercises. No, you have to inhale and then exhale. And do that really deep inhalation and exhalation. So that will help a lot, no? That's also the practice of mindfulness. The practice of mindfulness just tells us to be aware of how we feel. Be aware of how we feel, and then acknowledge it, and then address it also. And then of course, progressive muscle relaxation also. Next slide. So tandaan natin, no? At this time of a pandemic, it's not always about also individual care. It's also about community care. Kasi remember, dun sa isang slide ko, sabi ko we are all in this together in terms of pandemic. And community care means having to have structural changes and social rearrangements that need to be made alongside with the usual support that we give. So let's not forget about that. So next slide. So on this slide, here are the numbers that you can reach out to if you need help. So yung pakisave na lang po ito sa inyong mga phone. This is the hotline of the National Center for Mental Health. 24/7. So that is suicide prevention, but now open na sila sa counseling. So please save this. It will help you a lot. And then to your right are actually CSOs that offer free services in terms of counseling, debriefing, etc. So next slide. So again, I would like to reiterate that social distancing doesn't mean social isolation. So, distansya lang yan. Pero yung emotions, you're still connected. No? Next slide. So that ends my talk for this morning. So thank you so much. And yan.
Thank you. Thank you rin po, Doc Gia. Sabi niyo nga po, no, na we are not alone, na lahat tayo affected by this pandemic in one way or another.
Yes.
And resiliency or bouncing back, napakalaga nun, especially yung pag-set natin ng routines per day. And wag natin kakalimutan na dapat dun sa mga gagawin natin everyday ay isingit natin or even i-prioritize natin yung self-care activities.
Tama.
And alam ko marami makaka-relate na ang dami talagang triggers ngayong pandemic pero mahalagang na-acknowledge natin yon and nalalaman natin kung paano i-address. And minsan hindi na lang natin yung kaya sa sarili natin. That's when we seek for help. Reflect, examine, replace. Reflect, examine, replace. Sana matandaan natin yon dahil important din yun, especially in times like this. And dahil nalaman nga rin natin na lahat naman tayo affected, community care, magandang i-observe natin yon na hindi lang tayo sa sarili natin yung kailangan mag-survive, kundi gusto natin na after this pandemic, kasama rin natin yung community natin, yung circle natin sa pagbangon muli. Tama po, di ba?
Tama. Thank you sa recap, Jay.
Opo. Maraming salamat din po. And gusto po sana natin malaman kung meron bang gustong makapagbahagi, kung ano yung mga nararamdaman nila ngayong pandemic, lalo na yung mga meron pang online classes, yung mga hindi man sila yung sobrang affected pero hindi nila maiwasang maapektuhan dahil yung immediate community nila ay labis na apektado. Kung pwede po sana ay merong mula sa mga participants natin yung makapag-share kung ano yung nararamdaman nila or what. Ayan. Pero siguro kung wala pa muna, ibalik din muna natin po ang isa pa nating panelist, si Ma'am Samira. Upon registration po kasi for this, nag-ask po tayo ng ilang mga questions mula sa mga participants natin na sana po ay masagot or makapagbigay po tayo ng natin or advice. So, mula po kay Shian, nandito ba ngayon si Shian? So, sabi niya po, we are aware that some families indeed cannot be mixed in the same roof as there are cases of malice, inhumane, and unlawful act among the members. What are the possible movements that you could propose to ease this misguided conduct and to influence the government from taking an action?
Is this about one family, babae, lalaki, tapos hindi pwede sa isang room or something? Parang hindi klaro sa akin.
Sa isang bahay po at some families indeed cannot be mixed in the same roof. Siguro po yung merong mga threats ng violence.
Okay.
Opo.
Yeah, well, under COVID din naman yung like a patient or somebody na kailangan isolated, paano siya itrato. Pero yung kung some member of a family is a source of threat or violence, or ito for our part yung sa COVID, yung isolation, she should be isolated from the rest. Yun nga that's something na inaaral natin ngayon, how the new normal would be, na ang sa akin is pagrespeto sa espasyo ng bawat isa ay very important in acknowledging that, no, by parents, by children, by bawat magkapatid, bawat member ng household, kilalanin na merong bagong arrangement at bagong pagkilala, no, sa under these circumstances of COVID. Kailangan siguro i-brief, meron tayong mismong group discussion, sharing as a family, no? Hindi natin iniiwasan yung ganong sitwasyon na may isa sa atin pwedeng mas depressed kaysa iba at kailangan yung support system. Napakalaki natin nga na may time ngayon para sa ganitong more time to get exposed to each other as a family. At merong time for discussing limitations, openness, kung ano yung pagkukulang. So I don't know what legislation is there because it's really self-regulatory yan sa bawat pamilya because as you know, privacy is very, very important in a family and as the Constitution case by the Supreme Court, sasabihin niya, you cannot, this is a kingdom, yung bahay ng bawat isa is a kingdom. And for me, mas lalo yung kwarto. That room, yung bedroom mo, napaka-private yan na espasyo. Yung bed mo, yung higaan mo, hindi dapat chine-check kung anong nasa bed mo ng ibang tao sa household. At mas lalo pa na yung spacing ngayon, mas defined. So therefore, yung spacing has to be rebriefed and reoriented sa atin. Ma'am G, baka may ano ka?
Meron actually tayong existing group, yung Lunas Collective. Yung Lunas is Lunas. It's actually, they provide feminist counseling para sa mga victims of gender-based violence. Kasi may tama si Ma'am Sam, no? Merong increased cases dahil nga nasa bahay lahat. So you might want to seek help dun sa Lunas Collective. They are on Facebook. Tapos pwede rin nilang there's also one group, yung The Sanctuary Project sa Facebook. That's for contact details naman ng mga CSO and LGUs. So, yun po. Meron tayong volunteer dito from Lunas Collective. Hi to Christian and thank you for doing this. No?
Ayan, pwede nating i-share yon, Lunas Collective and the Sanctuary Project para dun sa mga friends natin na nangangailangan ng ganong klaseng support ngayong mga panahon natin. Thank you po. Next question po is from Bernard. Sabi niya po, karamihan sa mga pamantasan ngayon ay may mga online classes pa rin. Ano ang mainam na paraan o suhestyon sa mga estudyante para maiwasan ang mga mental health issues, lalo ngayong may pandemya?
Yeah, I'd like to echo yung sabi ni Ma'am G. Calendared po tayo. Meron tayong specific oras na aral, no? Yung ating pagsulong, no, sa ating reading. And if you'd like na may kasabay ka, baka ganito na setting. Meron tayong like Zooming counseling or Zooming with our professor or our group mates so that lalo tayong namomotivate. Kasi nga, one of the things na hinahanap natin din ngayon, no, very, very new normal is it's very impersonal yung situation ngayon. Wala tayong katabi, wala tayong nakikita. Minsan naboboard tayo mabilis. So, yung ating there's just so much online din na pwede natin just upload lang or Netflix. So kailangan talagang scheduled, itemized, and my output. If you want to even test your kung anong natapos mo, then take that, like how do you test yourself? That's one way, so that you can measure your output.
And it's also important, no, to augment yung sinabi ni Ma'am Samira na you also have to properly pace yung lessons ninyo. hindi naman, it's not expected na in one day lahat ng subjects matatapos nyo. And I think it's a communication between you and your professor also. And there should also be a specific channel kung pwede saan kayo pwede mag-usap ng mga classmates nyo na non-school related naman. In that way, we can apply yung sinasabi natin school life balance na at least hindi man puro school, hindi kayo ma-burn out. So there's a channel for that. And again, we encourage collective actions to be able to raise concerns or even dialogue with the admin of schools about your concerns. Kasi yun nga, it's difficult times, no? And it really is a collective effort between a dialogue between students and admin. So you might want to, do yun yung call to action, no? I-communicate nyo rin yung needs ninyo sa school.
Yun. Thank you po. Inonote ko po yan bilang estudyante rin na ang dami pang ginagawang requirements up to now. So sana makatulong din yon sa iba pa nating participants ngayon na marami pa ring academic requirements na tinatapos or ginagawa. Next question po from Christine naman po ito. Recently, I am very anxious, demotivated, and having this kind of deep thoughts that I know for sure other young people experience as well. What ways do our speakers think that we can do in order to address this?
For me, write it out. Very, very valuable sa akin ang isang diary na kasi from thought to expression, to some form of expression, so that a diary would actually, at that state of mind mo, ilabas mo siya, that act of writing it down, that act of expressing it, is already one overt outlet na ilabas mo siya, na express, na ilabas mo siya sa universe. So importante po 'yon. Diary. And then sometimes nga pag i-look back mo nga siya, sasabihin mo, ganun ba ang pag-iisip ko? Bakit ko naisip 'yon? Bakit ko 'yon nagawa? Or bakit ko 'yon why was I that way? So actually you can, it would be something of a reference na ganun pala ako noon. So very important for me is expression and outlet. And a diary is one mechanism for, you must acknowledge that, ma'am. Kailangan pong kilalanin mo that there would be introspection sometimes, the chaos in one's mind. So many thoughts at you don't know kung saan ka na napapadpad.
Yeah, ako rin, no, I echo Ma'am Sam sa suggestion na write it out, no? Para naman dun sa mga hindi mahilig magsulat, talk it out. I mean, 'di ba? Pwedeng kasi sabi ko nga one thing I realized during this quarantine na everything is being able to talk about how you really feel and what you need. Because mahilig kasi tayo na ako na lang, parang wag ko na lang sasabihin para wala na lang problema. I think that's yes, may ibang ganon, but at this point when everything is bottled up, it pays to talk to someone you can trust. Kausapin nyo lang, and then pag kayo naman ang kinakausap, you just listen. And wala lang, kasi lahat naman tayo, we are all on the same page. Actually, yun rin yung iniisip ko na hindi ako nag-iisa sa mga uncertainties ko sa buhay. So that also kind of gives me assurance that in this journey, it's not also about me. And of course, na-mention ko to kanina sa talk ko, yung mindfulness practice. Madami ito sa YouTube, no? So you might want, because it's a form of release, yung mindfulness. So that's also one tip that I can give you. And of course, yung hotline numbers na flinash ko on the last part of my talk, that's a good medium para mailabas mo ang feeling mo, yung mga usap hotlines.
Ayan. Minsan po pagka masyado ng masakit at mapait yung mga nararamdaman natin, tendency kung hindi man natin i-overthink, binabaliwala na lang natin yung feeling. And siguro important na ipaalala natin palagi sa sarili natin yung feel what you feel. Pero wag natin hayaan na i-consume tayo ng mga nararamdaman natin.
Hi, hello, good morning po. I am the one who asked that question. Ayan. Yes po, thank you so much. Actually po, yun nga, as I've mentioned po dun sa question, parang it's really harder for me po to cope up in terms of nangyayari po ngayon like sa online classes, plus at the same time I'm doing also household chores since both of my parents are sick, so talagang sobrang hirap po pagsabay-sabay. And I'm just really thankful for this platform that I was able to really learn a lot, like what Ma'am Samira have said na I need to start with myself to acknowledge the feeling that I'm feeling right now po. Sobrang, parang kailangan mo talaga siya i-acknowledge and hindi mo basta pwedeng ignore lang kasi it will just really drag you down. Plus, yung sinabi din po ni Dr. Gia na magkaroon ng kind of addressing psychosocial stressors, yung reflect, examine, and replace. And yun po, sobrang thankful lang that it is not really about individual care, like hindi tayo nag-iisa. We have this kind of platform na sama-sama tayong natututo, sama-sama tayong nagli-lift up ng bawat isa po. And I'm really thankful for Bakwit for this platform po.
Chris, thank you for sharing. It's a very brave thing for you to tell us that your parents are sick. Grabe. I'm very connected to you. Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Be strong.
Yeah, laban lang. Kaya
Be
natin
strong.
to.
Be strong. Be strong.
Ayun po. Ito naman po, this is something heartbreaking. A question from Jean Noel. Hindi ko pa sure if banggit ko na tama. Ito po yung question. How can you cope with death, especially now that families aren't given proper closure through burial or living with the death of their loved ones? Di ba po dahil hindi na po sila nabibigyan ng burial na yon, yung mga namamatay kahit hindi COVID-19 yung dahilan.
Can I share about what Muslim faith tells us? When a person is dead, his soul, parang hindi pa rin yan, syempre hindi pa yan umaalis, nandyan. He's around. And so very powerful po yung power of prayer, that each one of us is remembering him and we want him to be blessed by God. Gusto natin tanggapin siya ni God. So very important po na meron pa rin tayong invested tayo sa taong who passed away, our loved ones, that we want him to be appreciated by God through the power of prayer. So meron pa tayong ginagawa, hindi natin iniiyak yung iyak lang na we lost him, but we also lost him to God. We lost him to another world. We lost him to another place na hindi na physical, nakasama natin siya somewhere else na po. So it's very important that we as a family, tayo mga kaibigan niya, nag-i-invest po tayo sa kanyang memory, sa kanyang good deeds by remembrance, and that we want him to face God. We pray for him to face God in his time positively.
And then for me naman, of course, the process of grieving is a process, no? It's not an overnight process. Hindi yan parang carry lang na maitulog and then okay na the next day. Of course, that's family and even friends, no? Kapag nawala, masakit, and it's a process. So, yun, focus on what you can control para sa akin. Something that you can't control are the rulings that bawal nga yung burial, and in fact, limited pa yung mga numbers na kailangan na mag-attend. You you still hold mass on whatever faith you're into, and then tell stories about the person, and good stories, good memories. Because, subconsciously, when you think about good memories, parang natatabunan na yung, it's not a total band-aid solution, pero when you look back on the good memories, somehow you're parang gumagaan yung feeling mo na he or she is in a better place also. So that's coming from my own experience. So we have a website, no? There's a website that we go to. That's www.familiesfirst.ca, and then you access that website. Meron silang article doon that talks about grief during COVID-19. So it might help you. So yeah. Thank you.
Ayan, thank you po. Sana nakatulong yung mga practical advice na yon on coping sa death of a loved one. So next question po from Carla. Sabi niya po, how can I lessen my panic attacks and how can I sleep early at night without overthinking?
Yeah, I know that I have a experience of a close person that has, I know, like panic. Hindi niya talaga maitulog for several days. And it's important that you do again acknowledge that, no, meron kang anxiety, meron kang weakness na kailangan kilalanin. And in that finding, in that acknowledging, in that moment na kinikilala mo na may kinakailangan kang gawin, you find your silence, you find that that moment na silence lang momentarily you need to invest in that, na it's you and some supernatural, someone greater than every physical being, our body, and somewhere that we cannot see, and that i-acknowledge mo yon. Very, very again important sa akin, for me, ang power of prayer and finding that communication time, because you need to acknowledge that you're smaller as a human being compared to the universe that can listen to you, and you can define that universe that you're in. So very important, ma'am, you're telling it now, you're acknowledging my panic ka, and finding that peace, mental peace, is a goal. That silence has to be done. Invest in that. Acknowledge the positivity, the memories of kindness, goodness. I'm sure marami kang experiences. Let it run through your mind. And I'm sure that you're going to find that mental peace.
And for me naman, share ko lang yung practical tips rin on how to deal with anxiety, most especially during this time. So number one na dyan, please don't forget physical exercise. No? I will always reiterate this as a doctor kasi mukhang lagi kasi naman basic yung mga advice namin, but it really works. So spend at least 30 minutes a day exercising because it will help your metabolism be up and about and at the same time be regulated. Tapos, pag umiinom ka ng iced tea, wag mo na munang inumin yan after 4 o'clock p.m. na. So, avoid coffee and basta close to bedtime, avoid na. Plus, kung nagsisiesta ka sa hapon, you might want to limit it to just 30 minutes kasi makaka-apekto yan sa sleeping time mo, most especially if you do it after 2 p.m. So, yun. And then, of course, make sure that yung bedroom mo, that's just for sleeping. Don't bring your laptops or gadgets with you on bed kasi nagkakaroon yan ng link eh. So, avoid cell phones muna before going to bed because the light can actually inhibit yung hormone that promotes sleep and relaxation. So, yun. Those are practical tips that I can share for you.
Ayun, thank you po. Ngayon po, from our participants naman po na hindi pa nakapagpadala ng questions, encourage po natin sila ngayon na magtanong or mag-share ng kahit ano pong insights nila tungkol po sa topic natin ngayon. So, kung sino man po yung may question.
Kuya Nash, ikaw na lang po muna.
Hi, hello everyone. My question is for Doc Gia. Doc, what can you advise to someone like us, no, who's feeling, because we've been going out doing relief, so we are actually, or I'm personally feeling two guilts, no. First guilt is that you have a family at home, wherein, syempre, takot ka, you're kind of afraid to go out, but then the other guilt is that you have yung sense of service ba? You have the capacity to help out, and then there are some people who's needing it. So parang ganon, two guilts at the same time, na parang you're kind of afraid to go out because you have family na baka you might catch the virus. Then when you get out, you might infect them. And then at the same time, when you go out, there are a lot of people out there who's needing your help.
Doc G, nakamute po kayo po.
Sorry. So, para sa akin kasi, so, volunteer work is one thing that you can't take out from you. May tao talagang that will really, and that's fine, no, volunteer work. But please do take breaks. It's nice that you are aware that for a long time outside can expose your family to COVID. So make sure when you do volunteer work, Tash, na parang well protected ka. You follow protective gear, and then limit your time out. In that way, you meet yourself, you meet your needs both ways, no? Yung family mo and your volunteer work, you can balance that. So it's not selfish also to take breaks. So the things that you may want to, kung pwede mo i-delegate sa iba, pwede naman. And it doesn't take away the heart of volunteerism when you delegate also. So there are many ways to do that. I hope I helped you in one way or another. Okay, Jill.
Question po. For both na lang po, kay Miss Sampo and kay Doc Gia. As a college student po, paano po malalaman if you're on the right track in life? If parang alam nyo po na tama po yung kinuha nyong course, ganun. Since a lot of us are wondering po. Since madami pong nakakapag-overthink na yung ECQ po sa amin, mga batchmates po namin. If nasa tamang track po kami.
Yeah. For academics, madali yon, di ba? Kasi may curriculum tayo, meron tayong subject, meron tayong course, meron tayong supposed grading. I think yung question is, how do you know if you're balanced academically, spiritually, in the non-academics? So,
and if if parang tama po yung decision namin sa pinili po namin course.
Yeah. If you're fourth year, third year, it's kind of parang expensive na if it's to backtrack on the decision, to go back to first year or a new course. I think it's my advice that your comfort zone is really that you've taken this on. Decision mo ito, and you'll stick with it, and it doesn't define you in case na you've changed your mind na hindi ka na tipong person na science or hindi ka na person ng mathematics, tapos you found out later, fourth year ka na, you want to be in the arts, you want to be in the side of fine arts or what. So it doesn't take away that you're defined by certain family influence decision, meron iba na factor, no? What you do with it right now, with what the knowledge that you've taken, yan ang importante. Yan ang importante for me, ano? And how you measure your non-academics, how you're on track, is that it influences you to do better. It motivates you to do higher things. Makes you read more, makes you want to learn more. It really makes you positive feeling. So sa akin, the diary mechanism for me is very important. As a college student, marami akong appreciation. Friends made, readings made, knowledge made, because I keep on a thank you notebook. I write what I feel, and what I learned from friends, what I learned from my teacher. So positivity, appreciating all the positivity around you, I think that is the measurement of not just being a good human being, but also a good student. Kasi nga you appreciate what you have eh.
Yeah, ang sa akin naman is as long as aware ka sa ginagawa mo, you're happy. Well, of course, happiness is something that is subjective, no? Pero as long as ginagawa mo yung gusto mo, and then have a plan. It pays to have a plan. What will happen to me after now? Pero you have to be flexible also in terms of your plans. So it's dynamic. Pero for now, one day at a time muna, and then huwag niyong i-pressure yung sarili ninyo na dapat may plano na kayo ngayon. No, sometimes, of course, planning takes time. And especially when you're still in school, etc., magbabago pa yan. So make way or make space for those changes and managed expectations that you have. So that's my take, Jill.
Thank you po.
Thank you po. Yung iba pa, baka meron pa tayong ibang mga questions.
Si Sir Rainier daw po, mukhang may question po. Sir Rainier.
Sige, Rainier, ano yung question mo?
Okay na po, Ate Sam, na itanong ko na po. Babag ka.
Naririnig ba natin yung nagtatanong?
Hindi po siya
Hindi.
naririnig.
I think it's on mute.
Sir Rainier, I think. Ito po may question po yata, may nag-type po yata ng question. From Hannah Navarrosa. So here's the question of Doc Rainier yata. Why do we need to avoid caffeine drink after 4 p.m.? Can you tell me more? Question po ni Sir Rainier.
Yeah, so for Rainier, caffeine kasi is a stimulant. So kung umiinom ka ng kape before like sa gabi, it can interrupt your sleep pattern. So yun yung explanation doon.
Okay. Meron din po tayong question from June. Lots of students right now are anxious about online classes. What makes me really anxious right now are the changes in the curriculum and learning that DepEd asks us to do. For example, looking for alternative learning delivery modes, attending webinars, and producing modules for students during this pandemic. I understand that all of them are part of our work as teachers. But honestly, the pressure worsens my panic attacks lately because I always have the need to feel to be productive, but I totally can't. We have lots of deadlines, but I can't seem to focus on working. What do you think I can do in this situation?
For me kasi, I understand the pressure of the academe, no? But do not overburden yourself with things that it pays to have a routine. Siguro i-schedule mo na lang yung activities mo na in one day. So in that way, you're not overwhelmed with too much work. Or you can be creative in terms of how you teach your subject. Or pwede rin naman you delegate the things that you can to a co-faculty. So parang shared work siya. So it's not again all, I mean, this time kasi again, flexible accommodation matters. And please remember, let's not force ourselves to be extra productive during this time. So let's not put our burden, let's be kind to ourselves too. So wag naman natin i-burden masyado yung sarili natin. As long as we are able to deliver our part in doing our best, I think that's what matters most.
Respeto sa teacher and acknowledging her dilemma, no? Very important to co-share the burden. Why don't we chat with your co-peers sa iyong faculty, sa iyong school, so that I'm sure sila rin, they experience the same. I think it's a shared sentiment. So hindi ka nag-iisa again. Yung quoting G and quoting all the Wihilas one, pare-pareho tayong we feel not in control. So ma'am, kayo po ay isang professional. Alam nyo yung paano i-arrange, paano what's priority and not. Very important ma'am yung role nyo ngayon to put, a direction sa aming mga estudyante. So yeah, I agree with Ma'am G. You put it into a routine, ma'am, but don't stress yourself pag hindi mo yan na-follow. And I'm sure our administrators will also find a mechanism na paano rin po i-arrange tayo na we can come out with that output necessary without having to be so stressed out.
Ayan, thank you po. Sabi nga, yung ating productivity, hindi nun dinedefine yung worth natin bilang mga tao. Lalo na sa panahong to, iba't iba tayo ng definition, iba't iba tayo ng level ng productivity, and wag natin i-force yung mga sarili natin to the point na mas lalo lang tayong mahihirapan and magiging mas unproductive. I guess ito po ay in relation dun sa question kanina. Paano naman daw po if yung friend yung inaatake ng anxiety? A question from Hannah po.
If yung friend mo naman yung may anxiety, dito bumabalik yung, you just have to listen to what he or she is feeling, because listening actually makes up majority of how therapy goes, no? So makinig ka lang kung ano yung mga nararamdaman niya, and of course, the least that we want to do is to invalidate how he or she feels. So ano siya, very important that and please don't forget to reassure also your friend that whatever happens, nandun ka, sabay kayo or something like that. That's very reassuring. That's for me.
And thank you po.
We are all part of a universe.
Yes.
And for one time in this century nangyari to sa atin, we've witnessed this napaka-interesting, extraordinary phenomenon, at maraming apektado rin na friend o kaya network natin namatayan. So mas grabe po, I'm sure, yung sentimento ng mga namatayan. And for me na nakikisimpatiya, I think that's my advice, that others have it harder. And for us na nakikipag-ugnayan, awareness, self-aware, community-aware, it makes me less anxious about my needs as a human being, dahil sa alam ko na other persons are in a lesser, in a more problematic state who need our sympathy more. So yes, ma'am, we acknowledge our anxiety, but at the same time, we also need that know that others are more anxious and more physically even in need.
We have another question po from Shane, taga-FEU International Studies Society. So currently, I am quarantined in our province since I only arrived last Saturday. Since the only resources I have right now to disturb my stress and anxiety is food and something to watch, like television and movies, I would like to ask if the food that we eat could affect our mood. Like what type or kind of food that I can ask for in order to keep my mind calm and not trigger my anxiety about my canceled plans due to COVID-19. Thank you. Ayun po.
Well, wala naman
Si Ma'am G.
wala naman talagang food to be able to wala siyang, you can eat anything. It's just that you just have to eat it in moderation. So more fluids, especially now when mainit yung panahon, And yeah, you just have to do things in moderation. So, and of
Ako
course,
naman, alam mo, 20 years na ako dito sa probinsya after my fast food life sa college, sa college Diliman, din sa nag-law school din naman sa Arellano, no? Fast food talaga, McDo. I'm that kind of person na nag-bar review din, 4 years of eating in mga McDo, fast food. So I understand the ano rin, how do you call, anxiety ba yan na hindi na natin na-order yung gusto natin over the counter. So sa akin napakalaking bagay na nagpapasalamat ako na nasanay din ako sa sabaw at sa vegetables dito sa probinsya, and appreciate that again yung kung anong available na actually non-processed is already something na to be thankful for and makukuha natin sa probinsya.
yes.
Ayan,
Healthy
thank you
food
po.
pa rin.
Ayun, healthy food. More liquid, lalo na ngayong sobrang init ng panahon. Meron pa ba tayong ibang mga katanungan?
Hello po. I just have one question. No, I think it's not really a question, pero I really think po kasi na this pandemic is the perfect time for us to break somewhat the stigma na in the Filipino culture kasi we grew up na when we say sa parents natin na ma, meron akong medyo nadidepress ako, and they will say na ano ka ba, guni-guni mo lang yan. And I think this is the right time for us to break the stigma. But the question is, how can we break the stigma? Given the fact na the culture barrier is too strong. And ayan, I think that's my question po.
Sa akin po, to our parents na nakikinig, at saka thanks, Bern, for the question, is that they're part of shaping our culture against creating a stigma na hindi pinag-uusapan yung mental health. So conversation is very important. Ito, nakita ko sa mga kabataan, children ngayon, na they're really, wala time minsan yung parent, even right now sa COVID, we're all online or we're all kaharap yung cellphone natin. So kailangan mag-decision kami as parents to be taking time, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, time with our children for talking and for just kind of like pagkainan, kailangan tayo magkakasama, and take away TV time, meron tayong oras na tayo ay nag-uusap. So that the conversation in itself is a mandatory thing to be done. Kaya tayo may PTA, kaya tayo may parents, teachers, dialogues supposedly, and now there's more time tayo sa family. So please invest in talking with your children sa ating parents.
Okay, thank you po.
Doc Gia.
Yeah, I agree with Ma'am Sam. Don't stop at talking about how you feel just because for the first time parang hindi ka siguro in-acknowledge. That shouldn't stop you from ikaw yan yan yung nararamdaman mo And again, I will always go back to the mantra of mental health, that all feelings are valid. So if it's really there, you really need to talk about it. So don't stop at sabihan na wala yan, lilipas rin yan. Nandun siya So you might want to talk about it again. So I think that's one way for us to break the stigma.
Thank you po.
Ayan, thank you. Thank you po. Siguro we can accommodate one more question. Pero siguro yung iba pa nating mga questions, pwede naman natin padala kay Ma'am Sam or kay Doc Gia, and if they have time pa within the day or the next days ay ma-share nila. Pero for this, last question na muna tayo. Yes. Ito po yung last question from Facebook Live. Regarding sa friends ko na naabutan ng lockdown, for sure their mental health is being challenged, lalo na malayo sila sa family nila ano pong advice nila to cope up and di po nila makontak yung family due to communication issues like walang signal or no internet connection.
The greatness of our generation, guys, is we do have in our fingertip, in our own, in our own space, our own cell phones, and we can get connected. But if you don't have connection, it's a great time nga for the mental, mental well-being mo to be invested on. Kasi nga, we've been physically, mentally stressed up, no, sa ating classes. So, I don't know if you'd like to invest in yoga, prayer time again, reading the Bible, writing, something that you've not done. And in that bedroom, in that room of yours, you can do it na. Ngayon nang may oras ka. So, it's a decision po. Acknowledge it that this is just something na physical, na ikaw mag-isa, pero there's so many of us in these condo units, in these small rooms out there. So you're sharing, So ang dami ko nakikita YouTube videos that somebody sings out of his balcony and then nag-share siya sa lahat and everyone is like, wow, ang galing mo mag-piano, no? So we're sharing, we're kind of innovating on how to share our talent, ourselves through this limited physicality. So thank you for that. You acknowledge it and again, find a way. Kaya mo yan, kaya mo yan.
Yeah, I echo what Ma'am Samren said. You just have to focus on yourself and what you can do.
Ayan. Thank you po. So, doon muna natin tatapusin yung ating question and answer. Siyempre, maraming salamat sa Ako Bakwit for organizing this. And sobrang thank you rin sa ating panelists, kay Doc Gia and kay Ma'am Sam. We appreciate po yung mga practical tips and encouraging pieces of advice na we received today. Salamat po sa pagbabahagi. Siyempre, para sa lahat ng participants na nakasama natin ngayon, thank you sa paglalaan ng oras ninyo. Sana kagaya ko, marami rin kayong natutunan. Sobrang dami. Yung mga practical tips, sana i-share din natin sa iba, i-post natin sa Facebook natin. Kung hayaang tayo lang yung makakaalam nito. After all, what we want naman ay sama-sama tayong mag-bounce up after this pandemic. So, sana nakapag-attendance tayo dahil magpo-provide yung Ako Bakwit ng Certificate of Participation para sa lahat ng nakaisa dito sa activity natin na to. And abangan lang natin, magkakaroon pa ng maraming mga sessions kagaya nito ang Ako Bakwit. And on behalf of Millennials PH, nagpapasalamat din kami sa pag-imbita sa amin, sa pag-allow sa mga members namin na makasali. So, ayun, ulitin lang natin, yung gusto natin, sama-sama tayo maka-bounce back after this pandemic. And kahit nandito pa tayo ngayon sa sitwasyon na to, nandun palagi yung essence ng pagkakaisa natin na gusto natin ay walang may iwan. Pare-pareho tayo makakabangon.
So thank you everyone. Thank you Ma'am Sam. See you again soon. And thank you to Ako Bakwit. Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Jay. And plugging po yung Islamic Mental Health / Facebook.com.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
And everyone, thank you so much for the time. Thank you.